Hi, everyone. I'm Nguyen. I'm super excited to be here helping to moderate this awesome panel with Stephanie and Jodi on building high performance product teams. A little bit about myself before I turn the mics over to Stephanie and Jodi. I am the Chief Experience Officer here at Swimply. Swimply allows pool owners to rent their swimming pools locally and by the hour to guests in their local neighborhoods and communities. So think about us as the Airbnb of swimming pools, and we're quickly expanding into other vertical spaces like tennis courts, sports courts, etc. I have been in the world of tech for over 20 years. Started my early career at eBay in 2000, was there for 5 years, and then realized I loved early stage company building, product building, team building, culture building. So my sweet spot stage has always been sort of the early mid stages of startups. And then 5 years ago, I moved over into the world of venture capital, where I was investing in tech startups, and now I'm back in the operating world here at Swimply. And I have an awesome panel today. I'll start with Stephanie Neill, who is the VP of Product for Monetization at Twitch. And I will let Stephanie share a little bit about herself.
Thanks so much, Ha, and I'm so grateful to be here and speak with you all today. So as Ha said, I'm Stephanie Neill. I have been in product management my entire career, even before it was really called product management. And I've been leading high-performing product teams for the past 10 or so years. And I've actually helped turn around some teams that were struggling in difficult situations too. So as Ha said too, I'm currently the VP of product for monetization at Twitch. Twitch is a live streaming service where millions of creators come to connect with their communities and to create together. My team's purpose here is to help creators build sustainable communities, meaning that they make a living doing what they love. Again, which is spending time with the communities. Prior to this, though, I led teams at United States Digital Service, which was a startup in the White House. And we were focused on helping the federal government deliver the most critical services to those with the greatest need. And before that, I mostly spent time doing product management on e-commerce or content marketplace type sites. So like New York Times, About.com, Lionsgate, IAC, stuff like that. I am super excited to be here with you.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. And one of these days, we're going to grab drinks so I can hear all about your time at the White House. And then, love to turn the floor over to Jodi. Jodi Alperstein is the VP and GM of Twilio segment, and I'm a personal customer of Twilio's. I'm a big fan. So Jodi, please introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, Ha. Yeah, I am Jodi Alperstein, and I've been in tech for over 20 years as well, mostly leading product teams. Started my career back at E-Trade, which is really where I learned the craft of product, starting as an IC product manager and rising up through the ranks there, eventually becoming a senior director over my 8 years there, leading everything from their equity comp business to online retirement and advice, and really started in financial services and did that for quite a few more years. After E-Trade, I moved on to Moody's Analytics, where I'd say that's where I learned how to be more of an executive. I came in at the executive level and had a broad, big cross-functional team across product and product marketing and user experience and data operations and documentation, and spent about 6 years there. And then about 6, 7 years doing all sorts of crazy startups. Some you've heard of, like first VP of product at Credit Karma, super fast growth. Other small things like seed stage and even A, B, and C. I joined at every stage. And though I think I found that for me, actually, I like to help scale teams up. So a little different from you, Ha, and returned to public companies when I joined Twilio about a year and a half ago, originally to lead the product teams, but pretty quickly moved into a GM role. So that means I have full accountability for our whole business unit, inclusive of engineering, product ops, program management, product analytics, design, documentation, research. So quite a bit. there in regards to segment. And Twilio, for folks who don't know, we are a communications platform, really the leading one out there to help people to communicate with their customers via email, messaging, video, voice. And then Segment, which is what I run, is the leading customer data platform. So we're putting them together to create the top customer engagement platform. So that's what I'm doing now. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're here to talk about building high performance product teams. And of course, having a high performance product team is really critical to making sure that we're building the right products, we're getting it out to our customers, it's delivering value. And in the process, hopefully, we have super happy and engaged teams as well. So I want to start with sort of just a pretty simple question, which is, what is a high performing product team to you? And how do you know when you have a high performing product team? So Stephanie, why don't we go ahead and start with some of your thoughts?
Sure, thank you. So how do we know when we have a high performing product team, and what are some of the attributes? I mean, ultimately, you know if a team is high performing because they are consistently delivering value to the customers, however you define that value, and they're having fun doing it together. I think one of the most important attributes of a high performing team would be having a strong shared culture. I actually really like the way that Daniel Coyle, the author of Culture Code, I really like the way he lays out the mentality of a high performing team. So you go from thinking about the self, like, I want to protect my status, I don't want to look stupid, like, I want to achieve these things, to thinking about the team as a whole. So I want to do everything I can to help us succeed. And as he puts it, going from like the scared guard dog mentality to going to the wolf pack mentality, hunting down a target together. I think as leaders, as product leaders, we need to build that culture, right? That boosts individual motivation and increases the collective skill of the team. This is literally our job, right? So to foster that alignment and enthusiasm toward the right goal. I think while you're doing that, though, you need to send and reinforce consistently the message that you belong here, it is safe to speak up here, and we all have a shared purpose here. And I think if you focus on that, you're going to develop a strong, high-performing product team. I guess that's what I'd say.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you talked about just, that really as leaders, that this is what our jobs are, is to sort of build the environment, the culture, bring on the right people, and then allow them to shine. But then it's always sort of the we before me. So love that. Jodi, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that was great. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'd maybe add, in addition to the impact, which I think is the top measure, right? Are you actually delivering impact to your customers? I'd add about empowerment. Really, these top teams, top performance, they are truly empowered and they are really highly collaborative. And I often think about product management, engineering, and design at the core of that. But I also think it's important about bringing in all the cross-functional teams at every stage when it comes to product discovery, development, and then your rollout programs, because that's what's going to make it overall successful, and that it's done with efficiency and this sense of low toil and low frustration. And of course, being customer driven, leveraging the data that you need to solve the most important problems that's going to have a market impact as well as the user impact. And I have a great story I would love to share about an example of a high performance team. And it's my current team, so I'm excited about that. And it has to do with our initiative to regionalize our product, really specifically around data residency in the EU. And I think another key part of this, the cross-functional, is that alignment piece that needs to come together. And so we had been coming up with our roadmap actually for last year. And we had some different ideas about what we wanted to do. And our go-to-market team came in and said, you know what, the most important thing you need to do is actually get to this Schrems 2 compliance. Otherwise, we're not even going to have a business in Europe. So we had to come together with them, and we decided to adjust what our initial plan was and reset. It was before the start of the year, but what our biggest top priority was going to be for 2021. And so we thought we had alignment. And then we realized, we went a little bit further, because there were really two business units that were connected to this, that our sister unit, it had it on the list, but it wasn't their top priority. So we had to get alignment again with them. And so we did that and reset their roadmap a little bit. And then the next thing that happened is, because the way we build things, there's about 15 different teams that were involved with this. And we typically have a you build it, you own it perspective, in terms of maintenance going forward. And we could have had them all go off on their own, but we wanted to bring them together and make sure we're setting the vision overall, that this is what we need to do. We need to stand up a new infrastructure and environment in Europe where the data could reside there. And at the same time, we said we could modernize our entire platform and move it to a Kubernetes type approach, which would accelerate the way we had our infrastructure set up by more than 2 years. And so by giving my senior leadership the opportunity to add that goal in there, they were empowered at the next level down to set the scope of what needed to be done. And then they had each of the teams figure out how they were going to work together to make this happen, and what was going to be the milestones over the course of a year for private beta and public beta, and then bringing it to GA. And in the course of the year, we had over 150 people with 15 teams working collaboratively together to set what was in scope, what was out, and we delivered it on time, with this huge impact for our customers, all by setting the right vision at the top and making sure we had that alignment across the business. And then they were set free to go and be empowered to achieve that result. And they did. So that's a story that kind of goes along with that. So I hope that kind of brings it to life a little bit.
I love that story, and something that we like to say here is that it's always about sort of outcomes over output, and so just giving folks sort of the top level sort of strategic and strategy and vision, and then allow and empower the teams to kind of figure out how to achieve those outcomes, but giving them latitude and leeway and how to do that. That's fantastic. Both of you started touching upon like success metrics and KPIs. And so I'd be kind of curious, like, how do you know you have a high performing team? Is there a specific KPI or success metric that you look at that says like, yep, I know that this team is on the right track? Why don't we go back to actually Stephanie and get your thoughts, Stephanie, and then Jodi.
Yeah, sure. So I still do truly believe that impact to your North Star would be my primary. Because if you're not delivering value for your customers, then like the purpose is not being fulfilled effectively. Of course, there are other inputs that I would want that like any great manager like should monitor, right? So like obviously keep an eye on turnover. Like, are you able to keep people and keep the right people, I should say. Team resilience. How do they as a unit sort of respond to change? And respond to challenges, because in tech, like there's always new learnings and there's always new things that can kind of trip you up. And then what's the general sentiment and feedback of the team members? So like talk to the team, understand, how they're feeling and how they feel about their work, how they feel about working together, how they feel about the company, as well as fellow leaders and key partners. So those are the key inputs that I tend to look for. And then that sort of like qual and quant picture kind of gives you a sense of how are you performing. Kind of going back to what Jodi was saying as well, is there clarity of purpose? Is there, does everyone understand what good looks like? how you measure good, how you measure success. Is there alignment, like explicit agreement across the functions, across the partners in order to deliver that? And then are the teams actually able to be empowered as a result of that?
Again, I agree, and I add to it. So, a few things might be delivery predictability, right? So, are you able to deliver what you said you were going to by when you were going to do it? Although the output is the most important part, a high performance team is able to deliver on time as well. I also look at things like product reliability. You don't that is the number one feature always. Does your product do and perform at the level that it's supposed to, and is it able to scale? As well as things like technical health and debt. A lot of times as product managers, people are thinking about the next feature, but really that underlying health of the product is so critical for any kind of cloud-based solution. I'm also going to look at customer and partner health metrics. While a lot goes into that, certainly the effectiveness of the product is there. And then within the team, in addition to retention, we look at engagement scores. We do those sorts of things every single couple times a year. And then we look a lot at hiring metrics as well as a super fast growing team. This is not just the responsibility of recruiting, the hiring managers and the whole teams that are responsible for interviewing. It's a big part of our success because we'll never be able to deliver and have the impact if we don't have the people. And lastly, we're looking at DEI scores within the team because it is very important to us that we are trying to reduce bias and have a very well-rounded team. And so we're constantly focusing on our DEI as well within our company.
Well, thank you. Great. And that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I know we have a few new managers here in the audience. And so if you were to sort of just boil down to like the playbook or sort of, what are the sort of steps to building a high performing team? And I know, Jodi, you and I were talking yesterday and you were kind of talking about sort of first it starts with bringing on the right people. So can you kind of share like kind of, what your 1, 2, 3 playbook might be? So we'll start with you first and then love to have Stephanie also then chime in.
Absolutely. And if we're focusing first here on product management at the heart of it, and it comes from a place of hiring the right people. So that is number one. I do like to make sure that I'm going with a well-rounded team. And for most people, and certainly in my experience, it's very, very rare that I'm hiring product people straight out of college, unless you're doing some sort of, internship or associate product management program. Typically, you're hiring people who have a background in some other function at some point in their career, maybe not switching right now. And so I look for people where I'm going to have some people who used to be engineers and some people who used to be product analysts and some people have MBAs, because I want a well-rounded team with different schools of thought. That can then help the other people up level where they might be a little weaker, because we all have certain areas of strength. And yet the role of product management tends to be somewhat generalist, where you have to do a lot of different things. So that's number one, hiring for well-rounded and super, super smart people, and then making sure that we are onboarding them correctly, investing in them. And I'm looking for people who are culture builders, because I do think that creating a happy team is going to create happy customers. It's also going to create empowered teams and productive teams. And so really want to focus on that culture. And for us in our culture, I'm looking for people who want to live it, who really buy into it. And we have 4 key values, because your values are what drives your culture. So we are builders, we are owners, we are curious, and we are positrons. And how that comes together really impacts the way we do our work. So I want people who are going to buy into that stuff because it really matters. And then I'm also looking for people who are able to play their positions. So this might seem odd, but I've worked at enough places where I've seen people kind of swarm the ball, like, imagine 6-year-olds playing soccer and there's an issue and everybody just runs to that issue and they leave everything else to fall. I don't think that's the right way to build high performance teams. I think it's important that people are willing and able to play their position, um, but also cover when needed, that they have enough flexibility, that they're comfortable enough with ambiguity, because there are times that you're going to ask them to move and change. So these are some of the things that I'm looking for in people as I start to build a team, as I start to empower the team, and really focus on that culture, because I do think that the ability to develop a team, it's critical that the team wants to be there and that they're truly motivated to be there. Because if you have high turnover, it's really, really hard to build a high performance team. And, Stephanie touched on some of these points earlier, but for me, when I think about that, it's a lot about that motivation that keeps people engaged. And I think about the top components of motivation. Elements are, you need to have, you're going to want to have mastery. You're going to want to have a sense of belonging. You're going to have a sense of purpose. And you're going to want to have agency. And those 4 elements are going to keep people engaged and productive and being able to work together.
Thank you. And then, so first, I mean, just to summarize, so first bringing on the right folks to the team, um, sort of having your company sort of rooted in core values, and then sort of setting up sort of the environment for which they can thrive. So Stephanie, any other sort of thoughts or things to add to that?
No, honestly, I think Jodi did a really great job actually hitting the nail on the head. I mean, DEI, having clear values to help you scale your culture, like co-ownership of the objective, but clear roles and responsibilities. All of these things are just essential, I think, for standing up the team. Maybe perhaps I can expand a bit and talk a bit about developing the high performing team. So I think about the framework, forming, storming, norming, performing. I think what Jodi just talked about is exactly like what you need to be doing as you're forming, especially forming the team. Be incredibly intentional and explicit, and build that culture that you want, and the scaling mechanics that go with it. But then it's like you move into the team inevitably will move into a storming phase, right? Where there will be conflict, and people have different conflict negotiation styles. And it's important for the teams to experience this and to learn from one another and see how their conflict resolution styles actually fit together. And this will deepen the bond over time. So you as a leader, you need to make that phase safe. You need to make it safe for the team so they can go through that. And then norming is really like culture is solidifying. And for you, that's a chance to really influence the team norms with your larger cultural norms. I heard a quote once that really resonated, which was, culture is the worst behavior you're willing to tolerate. And I feel like that is, as things are norming, it's like you got to have a close eye and make sure that there's not bad behavior and that you're not tolerant of it if it occurs. And that also kind of feeds back into the safety and everything. And then, of course, performing, right? Like that's where we want to be so we can be high performance. You should ask yourself every day, am I providing the clarity, the alignment, the empowerment to let them run their fastest to hit that goal, that right goal?
Thank you. Those are really, really great tips for sort of building sort of a high performing team. I'm looking at the time, so I think we just have time for one more question left, and it's actually my favorite one, which is sort of how do you reward and recognize a high performing team? So if, they're absolutely crushing it. I know at Swimply we really care a lot about celebrating people and recognizing individual and team success and performance. I'm kind of curious. We'll start, Stephanie. Why don't we start with you? What do you do at Twitch, and then we'll go to Jodi, and then maybe if we have time, I'll kind of share a couple of things that we do here at Swimply.
Sure. Awesome. So definitely you touched on the individual versus the team. I actually do spend time and I sit with each of my team members, both directs and skip levels, to understand how they prefer to be recognized, because I think that's just an incredibly important piece of motivating a team and making sure that they feel valued. So I remember early in my career, I would literally like make pie charts with them. I don't do that anymore. Now I just sort of get a sense, is it sort of monetary versus celebratory versus public, private, top down versus social, etc. And then I just keep it in mind, and I make a mental note to always provide recognition when the time is right. But other than that, we generally just build in your sort of like probably typical like rituals into the product development process, like all hands shout outs, Slack channels for our wins, but also for our experiments. So we're like encouraging, learning, like the emphasis should be on learning, and reinforce that it's okay to make mistakes type of thing. The one fun thing I think I'll call out is we don't have an analogous version of this in this online world, unfortunately, but we used to do champagne sabering, which when there was a big launch where we would buy bottles of champagne and then there was like literally a saber, like a big knife in the office, and people would just like cut the tops off the champagne, and it was crazy, but super fun.
That is super cool. That's really, really fun. We'll have to figure out the virtual version of that because that would be super fun. Jodi, any tactics?
Agree with all of this, and it's interesting. I just want to add one more thing about we're having this big focus on culture because I think it's so critical. Peter Drucker's famous for saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast or lunch or whatever your favorite meal is. And I think it's so true. And that's why we're talking about it so much, because everybody's going to focus on their strategy. It's really important as you're building your teams that you're thinking about these items and, identifying, first of all, who you're going to recognize. And, a lot of companies focus on OKRs. We do BPMs, which is big picture priorities and measures. So really figuring out what deserves to be recognized, I think is important. And one of the things that Stephanie said pretty quickly, I think is also really critical, is about, making sure there's a safe space for failure as well, and that there's not any kind of shaming about that. You really want to make sure that, sometimes you want to recognize people for trying an experiment, even if it didn't work out, and recognize that. Better luck next time too. You want to, maybe in that case, you recognize, what did you learn from this? What came out of it? Which also gets into things like doing, blameless retros and figuring out how to improve, because I think there's a certain recognition in that, in the learning that you need to come through. But in terms of the big celebrations, the things that Stephanie mentioned are certainly there. One thing our company does is at our company kickoff annually, actually our executive team picks about 10 different teams and recognizes them as full teams in front of the entire company, and they get a superb owl award because that's our little mascot. So it happens at every level. I would say managers are recognizing people, directors, VPs, at every level you're finding that place to recognize people in a way that allows us to be highlighting people's successes, especially at the team. And, you highlight individuals as well, but as much as we can focus on the teams, I think that's really great. How you want to round us up here and end it out for us?
I was going to say,
can I make a quick,
please.
I just have to say, Jodi invoked the father of product management. This might be the best panel ever.
I think so, but we're a little bit biased, but for sure. No, at Swimply, I'm proud that that when we do our employee NPS, if you will, like people will say that this is the best place that they've ever worked, and we really, really care about sort of the recognition, right? So we believe in public recognition, private coaching. We have a shouts channel on Slack where people can constantly recognize their colleagues. On Wednesdays, we have Gratitude Wednesdays where we pick the name of a Swimply employee, and then anybody can just chime in and share why they're grateful for that colleague. And so it just makes people feel good. I mean, it makes people feel, that they're valued and appreciated. And then I try to think about that, like, how do I do that every day? Just like thanking somebody, sharing a piece of gratitude. Even I think earlier, right before this panel, I was in a meeting where I felt like one of our leaders was being beaten up a little bit from like just not hitting the growth numbers. And I made sure to just step in and just say, like, thank you for everything that you're doing and for leading us. And it's hard, but we're going to all get through it together. And so, so just some of those like moments I think is just appreciated by everybody. But I agree with you, Stephanie. I think this was the best panel yet at Women in Product, and hopefully the audience thought so too. And hopefully we'll be around and answer any questions that the audience may have for us. And I'm sure that we're available via LinkedIn. So connect with us via LinkedIn. And thank you for the time, Jodi. Thank you for the time, Stephanie. It was truly an honor and a privilege to be in this panel with you. And any closing thoughts before Gabe kicks us off?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I look forward to connecting on LinkedIn.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.